In this video, we start with an old pickup truck, $0 in our balance, and just a chainsaw. We have a small piece of land with a few trees and a little space for farming. Our goal is to turn this land into a fully functional farm. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and let's get started. When I spawned on the map, I immediately realized that we had no fields, no machinery, and not even a minimal starting capital. The only real way to earn our first money was to head to the nearest forest and start harvesting wood. So I didn't hesitate for long. I jumped into our old pickup and drove toward the forest. After reaching the right spot, I grabbed the chainsaw and cut down the first tree. Once the trunk was on the ground, I carefully removed all the branches so they wouldn't interfere with the next steps, then started cutting the log into sections. I needed to make several pieces that would be easy to load, so I tried to cut them evenly to place them in the bed without any problems. When the logs were ready, I drove the pickup a bit closer and began throwing the pieces of wood into the back one by one. The main problem was not to overload the truck. The pickup was already in poor condition, and too much weight could easily make it fall apart on the road. So I decided not to load too much and secured everything with straps so the cargo wouldn't fly out on the turns. Now it was time to head to the sawmill. Unfortunately, it was located quite far from our farm, but the price for wood was very good at the moment, so I decided not to waste any time and went there right away. All the way there, I was worried that the pickup might not survive the trip and that something could fall off. At the sawmill, I sold all the harvested wood, and we earned about $2,500 from this load. For a start, that was pretty good. With this money, I could already think about progress because my next goal was to buy a tractor. Without it, we simply wouldn't be able to do real farming and start building our own farm. On the way back, I decided to stop by the store and check the current prices. One tractor caught my eye, priced at around $7,500. It looked quite rusty and worn out, but judging by its stats, it should still work fine, and the price was very attractive. When I got home, I realized that the money we had was still not enough for a serious start. So I went back to the forest and continued cutting wood. I made several trips like this, always trying not to overload the pickup because it was our only vehicle and everything depended on it. After some time, we had a little over $7,500, enough to buy the tractor. But I decided to earn a bit more so I could also buy a plow. After another run, our balance was almost $11,000. That was definitely enough to purchase all the essential starting equipment. I immediately went to the shop and bought the tractor we had chosen earlier. In addition, for $850, I bought a small 5-furrow plow. I think that with it, we will be able to create our first field and take our very first real step toward building our own farm. After buying the plow, I attached it to our new tractor and immediately hired a worker to follow us to the place where we planned to create our first field. I then switched back to the old pickup because driving such a long distance on the tractor would have been far too slow. The trip took quite a while. The tractor's top speed was very low, so I constantly had to stop and wait for it to catch up. Sometimes I even worried that it might get stuck somewhere or go off the route, but fortunately it eventually made it to the destination. When the tractor finally arrived, I got behind the wheel and started creating our very first field. It was a truly important moment because this is where the road to building our own farm really begins. I tried very hard to keep the borders of the future field as straight and neat as possible, but it turned out to be more difficult than I had expected. The ground was quite dry, the machinery was bouncing slightly, and I didn't have GPS navigation, so I had to rely purely on my eyes. As I was plowing the first strips, I realized that growing crops in the future would bring far more profit than endlessly hauling wood. However, we were still very far from that. We would need seeding equipment, harvesting machines, trailers, and many other things that we simply didn't have yet. We didn't even own a basic grain trailer, so for the near future we would still have to keep earning money by selling wood, just to be able to buy all the necessary equipment. After some time, I managed to fully outline the borders of our future field. It turned out to be quite large, and I understood that plowing it all by myself would take too long. So I hired a worker again and told him to finish the job, while I decided not to waste a single minute and went back to harvesting wood. When I got back to the pickup, we had almost $2,000 left on our balance. I immediately drove to the shop to spend that money wisely. There, I bought a log trailer that cost a little over $1,000. This was an extremely important purchase because now we could transport much more wood in a single trip than before, when everything had to be loaded into the pickup bed. The only thing that worried me was whether our old vehicle would be able to handle such a heavy load. Back in the forest, I cut down another tree and started loading the new trailer. Now the process went much faster because the trailer's capacity was significantly larger. While our worker continued plowing the field, I focused entirely on harvesting and selling wood, knowing that our farm's future depended on it. I kept working for a long time because I had set a clear goal for myself, to save enough money to buy another tractor. With a second machine, we would be able to significantly speed up the plowing process, and in the future, an extra tractor would definitely come in handy. My plan is to build a truly large farm, and in a business like that, you simply can't manage with only one piece of machinery. Gradually, our balance kept growing, trip after trip, load after load, and eventually I decided to stop when we had almost $21,000 in our account. I figured that this amount should be enough to buy another tractor as well as an additional plow. Since we now had enough money, I chose a tractor with a front loader mount right away. I knew it would be useful in the future, and the price wasn't high enough to skip this upgrade. Along with the tractor, I also bought another plow identical to the one we already had. For its price, it did its job perfectly, so I didn't bother looking for anything else. After the purchase, I immediately attached the plow to the new tractor, and then we all headed back to the sawmill in a small convoy. We needed to pick up our pickup. This time, I decided to put a worker behind the wheel of the old vehicle because I really wanted to drive the new tractor myself. That's how we made our way back to the farm. The tractor in front, followed by the pickup driven by the worker. When we arrived, I parked the pickup in its usual spot, got back into the new tractor, and started helping the worker plow the soil. To be honest, even with two tractors, this process still takes a lot of time, but now we're getting it done much faster than before. This once again proved that buying a second tractor was the right decision and an important step toward developing our future farm. After a long time, I finally finished plowing our first large field. The day was already coming to an end, and when the work was completely done, I realized that we had really accomplished a lot today. So I decided that it was enough for now and that it was time to get some rest. But before that, I wanted to take care of our machinery. Up to this point, all our equipment had been standing out in the open, and I really didn't like that. So I decided to build a small garage for it. Unfortunately, we only had enough money for the simplest and quite rusty option, but it was still better than leaving the tractors and the pickup under rain and sun. At least now we had some kind of shelter. I drove all the vehicles inside and was pleasantly surprised that even our pickup with the trailer fit in there. Only then did I finally go to rest. The next day, our main task was to seed the large field so the first crop could start growing. However, we had almost no money left to buy a seeder and seeds, so the only quick way to earn the necessary amount once again was harvesting wood. I headed back into the forest, trying to load the trailer with the biggest logs possible, and then drove straight to the sawmill. After arriving there and selling all the wood, we earned a full $5,000. That was a very good amount, and I realized it should now be enough for all the required purchases. I went back home to park the pickup because we would need a tractor to transport the new equipment. Then I got into our new tractor and decided to take the plow with me. We didn't really need two plows, and some extra cash would be very useful right now. At the shop, I sold the old plow, then bought a fairly large and inexpensive seeder along with several bags of seeds. After that, I attached the seeder to the tractor and manually filled it with seeds, then immediately headed back to the farm. When I arrived, I started sowing the field. Even though the seeder was much larger than our plow, the enormous size of the field meant that the job still took a very long time. I finished closer to the end of the day, but now the entire field was fully planted with canola, a crop that sells for a good price and doesn't require very expensive equipment to harvest. Once the work was done, I decided to rest again and wait for the canola to fully mature. During all that waiting time, I kept harvesting and selling wood, so by the moment our crop was nearing harvest, we had already managed to replenish our balance a bit. Finally, the moment had come. Our canola was fully grown and ready for harvest. I checked our balance and saw that we had almost $27,000 in our account. I think this amount should already be enough to buy all the equipment we'll need to keep developing the farm. However, we'll get to the shopping a bit later, because we've already come a long and difficult way, from an old pickup and a chainsaw to our own large field. If you enjoy videos like this, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and hit the bell so you don't miss any new uploads. And for now, it's time to say goodbye. See you very soon!